Or look at those other forces with which you seem to be so much at home, and which you term attraction and gravitation. What do you really know about them? You name them. Perhaps you can repeat a mathematical expression which measures their action. But after all, you have only named and described an effect. You have not accounted for, you have not penetrated into, you have not unveiled its cause. Why, I ask, in the nature of things, should such laws reign around us? They do reign, but why? What is the power which determines gravitation? Where does it reside? How is it to be seized, apprehended, touched, examined? There it is, but there, inaccessible to your keenest study, it remains veiled and buried. You would gladly capture and subdue and understand it, but as it is, you are forced to confess the presence of something which you cannot even approach. And you yourselves, fearfully and wonderfully made as you are, what are you but living embodiments, alike in your lower and your higher natures, and in the law of their union, of this all-pervading principle of mystery? The life power which feels and moves in your bodies successfully eludes the knife of the anatomist as he lays bare each nerve and each muscle that contributes to the perfection of feeling and movement. Yet how much more utterly mysterious is your human nature when you examine its higher aspects, when you analyze mind and personality, and that marvelous mystery of language, wherein thought takes nothing less than a physical form and passes by means of a sensible vehicle from one immaterial spirit to another. Truly, if it were possible to linger here, it would be hard to terminate the catalogue of mysteries, so extraordinary, so familiar, so near to us always and everywhere, yet always and everywhere so above our comprehension. But I forbear. My brethren, you will pardon me if I say that to object to mystery as a feature of a divine revelation is at least irrational. Surely, as we mount in the scale of being, we must expect an increase both in the number and magnitude of these hidden truths. And when we reach his throne, who is the summit and source of all, we can hardly suppose that, because he has deigned to lay bare to us some of the secrets of his nature and some of the laws of his action upon our life, this his revelation will differ from the natural world which reflects him, in that it will altogether discard the presence of mystery. Yet when it is no longer a secret objection against the doctrine of the Most Holy Trinity, or of the Incarnation, or of original sin, or of the satisfaction which Jesus offered on the cross, or of the efficacy of the sacraments, that these doctrines in various ways embody as they do the principle of mystery. The soul has in very deed succeeded in casting down an imagination, an entrenched fortress with formidable powers of resistance, which too often exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and it is, so far, in a fair way, to bring its whole thought into the obedience of Christ. But there is a third line of resistance upon which the wayward reason of man falls back in its opposition to revealed truth. It grants that a revelation has been given. It allows that portions at least of the revealed truth are mysteries, that they are in themselves mysteries, although their existence is revealed. But at least, it exclaims, revelation shall not be dogmatic. If she is still to meet with public acceptance, Christianity must abandon the pretensions to offer a fixed, sharply defined body of truth to the acceptance or rejection of the soul of man. Let the religion of Jesus only come to the men of our time as a finished poem, and they will read, they will learn, they will love it. They will not inquire too accurately whether it be literally true, nor will it put such force upon their thought and will as to make any violent or serious change in the natural current of their life. They will indeed be much as they would have been without it. And yet it will exercise a kindly, gentle sway over thought and society. It will breathe upon human character a soft yet elevating influence. And if it exacts little intellectual homage and exerts no tangible moral force, it will at least have the merit of provoking no keen resistance. Such, we are told, must be the religion of our day. Intellect has condemned the principle of religious dogma, and religion is accordingly bidden to accommodate herself to the changed circumstances and imperious necessities of the time. On close inspection, it will probably be found that the dislike of clear doctrinal statements is only a disguised form of opposition to the truth which those statements embody. If, for instance, a man believes in the existence of one supreme being, he has no objection to saying explicitly that there is one God. It does not occur to him that in making that statement he is guilty of an intellectual narrowness or of a want of perfect good taste. Nor, supposing him to be a serious theist, does he hold it necessary presently to balance the profession of belief in God by some other statement which shall reduce his assertion to the level of an uncertainty. Yet to say that there is one God is to make an essentially dogmatic statement. Every man who makes that statement intelligently knows that it has a tremendous bearing on the belief of millions, alas, of the human race at this very moment. Yet the man makes the statement for the simple reason that he has no doubt of the truth which it embodies. If then he presently hesitates to say that Jesus Christ is truly God as well as truly man, or that the death of Jesus on the cross was a propitiatory offering for human sin, this, we must suppose, is because he does not believe the truths which are thus stated in human language. If he urges that a dogmatic statement is more or less unsatisfactory in that, owing to the imperfection of human speech, it leaves unanswered, or rather it suggests many concomitant questions, it may be rejoined that this is no less true when you assert the unity of God than when you assert the Godhead or the satisfaction of Jesus Christ. If he dislikes dogma because, forsooth, dogma is the stagnation or the imprisonment or the paralysis of thought, the substance of his objection may be unnoticed for the moment, while we observe that it applies to his statement that there is one God, just as much as any other proposition in the Nicene or Athanasian creeds. When he confesses that there is one God, he voluntarily renounces the right and the wish to entertain the idea of two gods, or of many gods. And when we Christians profess our belief in the atoning virtue of our Saviour's death, or in the mighty regenerating power of his baptism, we renounce with all our hearts the desire to suppose that the death of Jesus was a mere martyrdom, or that baptism is a graceful but, speaking spiritually, a useless piece of ceremonial. In either case, faith finds in the dogmatic statement its support. In either case, unbelief can see in the statement which it disbelieves nothing but a fetter or a prison wall. Faith discerns in dogma the regulation of its thought, not its stoppage, not its imprisonment, not its petrification. Just as the mathematician finds in the axioms which are the base of his science the fixed principles which guide his onward progress, not the tyrannical obstacle which enthralls and checks him. And unbelief decries dogma, not because dogma is really an impediment to faith, but because it is faith's true and trusty friend. The real crime of dogma is that it treats as settled and certain that which unbelief would fain regard as doubtful or false. If you believe a thing to be true, you have no objection to saying so. And when Christianity is warned not to be dogmatic, it is irresistibly implied that, however beautiful she may be, she must not assume her creed to be absolutely true. Here is the third high thing which exalts itself against the knowledge of God in this our day and country, namely, the dislike of fixed doctrinal statements. No one will deny that false dogmas have been and are being proposed to the faith of this or that body of Christians. All will admit that even true dogmas may be upheld by incompetent authority. But these are questions of detail, and the point before us is a broad question of principle. If with the apostle we believe in the everlasting gospel, we rejoice with him to proclaim its truth. Nay more, when he exclaims, "Though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed," we answer tenderly and seriously, firmly, Amen. You are repelled, it would seem, by this crowning exigency of divine truth. Yet your prejudice against dogma is the last stronghold of the enemy. It is a position from which he must be dislodged at any cost, or all previous victories may soon be forfeited. Surely it is of little avail to grant that a revelation has been given, and even that this heavenly gift is replete with mystery, if no one revealed truth may be stated in terms as absolutely certain. If the range, the powers, the effects of no one mystery may be presented to the vision of the believing soul. If religion is to be a practical thing, it must depend not upon beautiful thoughts, but upon clearly defined certainties. Its truths must come to us in a form which enables us to carry them with us and to bring them to bear upon our motives in the hour of temptation. When tempted, we need something solid to fall back upon, not a picture, not a mist, not a view, not an hypothesis, but a fact. For 18 centuries, Christianity has responded in various ways to this supreme necessity of the soul of man, and we may be sure that if she had done otherwise, she would long ago have ceased to command interest at the hands of those who seek in religion not an amusement for the passing hour, but a kind friend with a firm hand, who will guide them through the changes and chances of this mortal life, to the gate of that other world, which we must all, in whatever guise, reach at last. You may naturally ask, my brethren, what place in a Lenten course of sermons there can reasonably be found for considerations so abstract, so apparently removed from the immediate and pressing wants of the penitent and struggling soul, as have been some of the foregoing. It is enough to reply by pointing to the actual circumstances of our own day, and especially in this place. Penitence presupposes at least a certain measure of faith, and faith is proscribed by that undue exaltation of intellect which leaves no room for it, and which denounces the principles of mystery and dogma. Before a man can kneel with a broken and contrite heart beneath the cross of the Redeemer of the world, these high things which exalt themselves against the knowledge of God must be levelled, and his thought must be brought into the obedience of Christ. The great conflict which rages between the pride of natural intellect and the claims of faith is fought out on no remote or imaginary battlefield. Every thoughtful mind in this our distracted and anxious day is the scene upon which these hostile principles engage in fierce and deadly combat. And upon the issue of that combat, to many a man who hears me, may depend nothing less momentous than the salvation of his soul and his place in eternity. There are men who are shielded from coarse forms of outward temptation, and whose passions have never risen up with impetuous fierceness to break the resolution or to mar the purity of their spiritual life. Happy indeed are such privileged souls, yet it may be that their probation still turns upon the question whether or not they will make a sincere act of intellectual submission to the reason, the love of their God. Assuredly, the loftiest created intellect may submit to that reason without degradation. Assuredly, the most blameless soul will need in its day of trial, at the bar of infinite purity, the tenderness of that pardoning love. A time must quickly come when the struggle which yet waxes fierce will have ceased forever, when the hopes and watchwords and theories and enterprises which dazzle the eye as it gazes on the dizzy, tangled scene will have passed with the generation which has projected them into the silence of eternity, and the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. Beyond the weakness and agony of the last sickness, beyond the darkness and corruption of the grave, there rises a vision of a throne of judgment and of an everlasting world. Think of it well, brethren, and take your parts. Believe it. There is a submission of thought which is not slavery, and there is a haughty mental independence which, alas, knows itself to be anything but true freedom. They do not really suffer defeat who make their submission to God. They who, while opposing him, seem to conquer, can win but a perilous and short-lived victory. On this side is Paul, first a persecutor, then an apostle, and Justin, once a philosopher, then an apologist and martyr, and Augustine, who, out of a sensualized heretic and freethinker, is raised by divine grace to be a saint and doctor of the universal church. On that side is Julian, emperor and apostate, with endowments of character and gifts of intellect so calculated to win our highest interest and admiration, yet ending a reign in which rare accomplishments and consummate address and vast political power had been vainly employed against the gospel, with the despairing confession, "Thou hast conquered, O Galilean." In this short life, we see only a small portion of the full results of thought and action. But another world already casts its shadow across our path, and we often anticipate the endless future with a keen presentiment which is not less than tragical. Assuredly, intellect has its rights, its privileges, its duties, its triumphs. But faith has likewise her own province and her unshared capacities. And while all around her is change and uncertainty, she gazes unfalteringly upon the unseen and the eternal. She knows that for the object on which her eye is fixed, all else, if need be, may well be sacrificed, since all else will one day pass away. She knows that God hath so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have everlasting life.